So by the end of this video, you'll learn how to write a script that will allow you to instantiate objects on planes that are detected previously. So now if I tap on my screen over here, a cube gets spawned and then I can move it around as well. So let's get started. Hey, what's up? It's Asha here from Immersive Insiders, and on this channel, we help you become professional XR developers and designers. In today's video, we are going to learn to write a script or a component that will allow us to place any object on the detected planes. Now, if you haven't checked out the plane detection video yet, then you should definitely check that out first over here. And that's because this is going to be a follow-up video to the previous one. So let's get started. So here we have the scene from the plane detection video. Now if we check out the AR session origin, we have added the AR plane manager, which has a AR plane prefab which gets instantiated when either horizontal or vertical plane is detected. Now for this video, we want to detect only horizontal plane. So you can click on this over here and remove vertical, which means that the detection mode is just horizontal. Next, we need to write a script which will allow us to place any object on those detected planes. So to do that, you can right click in the project window, click on create and choose a C# script. We'll call it as AR tap to place, and you can double click to open it, and I'll see you in Visual Studio. So here we are in Visual Studio, and it's completely alright if you're using some other editor of your choice. Let us start by adding the libraries that are required. So first one is going to be using Unity engine.xr.ar foundation, and the next one is going to be using Unity engine.xr.ar subsystems. Alright, now let us get rid of this start method here, and we'll write the variables that are required for the script. Now the first variable that we need is something that can store the game object that has to be instantiated. So that is going to be serialized field, so that we can expose this parameter in the Unity editor. Private game object, and we'll call it as prefab object. So this is the object that has to be instantiated, and we need a variable that can store the instantiated object itself. So for that, we'll write it as private game object, and we'll call it as spawned object. There we go. Next, we need a variable that can store the touch position from your screen. So that's going to be private vector2, not vector3, vector2 touch position. There we go. Next, we need a variable that can store the AR Raycast Manager component. So that's going to be private AR Raycast Manager. We'll name the variable as AR Raycast Manager itself, but with an underscore. So that's going to be AR Raycast Manager. Perfect. And finally, we need another variable which will store all the hit information once the raycast has gone and hit some object. So for that, we'll write it as private list of AR raycast hits. We'll name the variable as hits is equal to, now here we have to instantiate the list, so we are typing it as equal to new list of AR raycast hits, open and close the brackets. Perfect. So with that, we have declared all the variables that we need. Next, we will use the awake method, and in here we'll go ahead and get the AR Raycast Manager component. So it's going to be AR Raycast Manager is equal to get component AR Raycast Manager. Now here we need to either make sure that the AR Raycast Manager is there by using an if statement, or to get rid of the headache, we can do is we can type required component type of AR Raycast Manager. So what this statement does is when you add the tap to place component, the AR Raycast Manager gets automatically added. So here we can go ahead and directly write get component. So because we know for sure that this component is going to get added. Alright, next let's get rid of this line over here. And in the update method, we want to first check if we have touched the screen. So if input dot touch count is greater than 0, so if the touch count is more than 0, then we want to get the first touch count. So if you have your mobile phone and you can touch like 3-4 fingers at a time, so whichever finger touches first, so that first position is what we want. So we're going to create a variable called touch is going to be equal to input dot get touch and the first position. So since it's a list, 0 stands for the first position of the touch. Okay, once we have that, we want to check if that touch is of phase began. So we'll say if touch dot phase is equal to touch phase dot began. So here you can see that we have began, cancel, ended, mode, and stationary, but we want to check when the touch has just begun, the first touch and it in the began stage. So once we have that, we can store the touch position. So it's going to be touch position is going to be equal to touch dot position. All right, so now that we have the touch position, we can shoot a raycast from that touch position, and once it hits a plane, all the information gets stored in the hits variable. So to do that, we'll say if AR raycast manager and use the method raycast and pass in the touch position, and we need to pass in the variable to store all the hit information. That's going to be hits, and we need to tell what exactly we're trying to track. It's going to be trackable type dot. So here we have a lot of options. It's all, then we have depth, phase, feature points. We are actually tracking a plane with polygon, so that's what we'll be choosing over here. Now if this is true, so if the raycast has hit something which is going to be a plane with polygon, then we want to execute something. At the same time, all the hits information is going to get stored inside this variable. So here the first thing we want to do is get the first hit position. So for example, when you scan your plane, if your table is scanned and if your floor is scanned, at certain angle you touch your phone, the raycast goes and hits the table first, and then it hits the plane that is on the floor. So we have two hits, right? So we want the first hit, which is going to be the table. In it's just an example, so we'll say pose hit pose is going to be equal to hits at the first point where it hits, and we'll get that's pose. All right, once we have it, now we need to check if this spawned object already exists. So for the first time, we know that this spawned object does not exist. So we'll say if the spawned object is equal to null, that is if it does not exist, then we want to instantiate it. So we'll say spawned object is equal to instantiate the prefab object, and we need to pass in its position and rotation. So that is going to be hit pose dot position and hit pose dot rotation, so that the position is exactly aligned with the floor, and rotation so that it's exactly in the same rotation as your horizontal plane. All right, so once we have that, the next time you touch somewhere else, we want the object to go ahead and spawn in that particular location. So we'll say else spawn object dot transform dot position is going to be equal to hit pose dot position, and that's it. So you can save this script, and I'll see you back in Unity. So here we are back in Unity. Now we need to create an object that can be spawned when you tap on the plane that is being detected. For now, we'll be creating a cube, but you can replace the cube with any object of your choice. So to create it, you can right click in the hierarchy window, go to 3D objects and select cube. We'll reduce its scale to something like 0.3 in all the three directions, and we'll get it back to origin. Let's not keep it at default material. Instead, we'll create a material. So you can right click in the project window, go to create, select materials. We'll call it as cube material, and we'll change its color to like green color maybe. And you can add this material to the cube. Now next, we need to convert this into a prefab. To do that, you can just drag and not AR subsystem. You can drag the cube into the project window here and get rid of it from the scene. Now select the AR session origin and drag and drop the component that we created. Now when you do that, you can see here that the Raycast manager got automatically added, and you don't have to worry about the Raycast prefab because we don't want it to show any prefab when every time a Raycast has been shot. And you can see here the AR tab to place needs a prefab object which we created. It is going to be the cube. Now we can finally build and test it out on our device. So to do that, you can click on File, Build Settings. Make sure that the correct scene is open, and then make sure you have connected your device as well, and then you can click on Build and Run. You can give your APK any name. I'm going to leave it as test 5. Let me click save, and I'll see you once it's done building. So the app has been built successfully, and let me first scan the floor here and then the table as well. There we go. And now if I tap on my screen, the cube should get spawned. Perfect. Now I can move them around as well. And that's it for this video. If you have any questions, then feel free to write them in the comments below. If you feel that these videos have helped you, then I'd highly appreciate it if you can subscribe and leave a thumbs up, which shows us to produce more videos just for you. By the way, we have linked a free ebook in the description which tells you about the crucial mistakes that you could make as an aspiring XR developer. So do check them out. And as always, I will see you in the next one.